In this Circuits of the Past video, Herman shows you all the versions of the Reims-Gueux Circuit in northern France. During the ride, I, Simon Smith, will tell you all about the history of the circuit and the changes to the track made over the years. We start with the 5.159 mile long original version of the Reims-Gueux Circuit, which was in use from 1926 right the way through to 1951. On top of this hillock was actually a bridge for pedestrians to walk from the grandstands to the paddock. This bridge had the look of a tyre, just like the ones we know from Le Mans. Of course, this roundabout was not part of the layout of the circuit. Don't go giving Mr. Tilk any more ideas. As you can see, we're approaching a village. This is the village of Gueux, and the original circuit ran right through this very village. That's why the official name of the circuit is Reims-Gueux, but most people came to know it as a Circuit of Reims. Reims was actually the biggest city nearby, whilst Gueux was actually the most nearby village. That's why the locals mostly speak of it as a Circuit of Gueux, not the Circuit of Reims. Herman needed to stop shortly after this intersection, but of course racing drivers from the past went flat out through here. We're now at the Gueux corner, the turning point into the village of Gueux. Naturally, these obstacles to slow down the traffic were not here during the old days. The Reims-Gueux Circuit was a street track with a permanent pit lane, grandstands and other facilities. It was operational from 1926 right the way through to 1972 and was most famous for holding the French Grand Prix, which it held there 12 times between 1950 and 1966. Alongside Formula 1 races, it also hosted the annual 12 Hours of Reims. Here we exit the village of Gueux and drive into the countryside. Here we have elevation changes and a beautiful fast corner right up on top. Now we enter the back straight, which is actually the N31 highway. In the old days, it was actually a two-lane country road. After the last French Grand Prix in 1966, the Reims-Gueux Circuit was used for national races and the 12 Hours of Reims. Sadly, the track became outdated and closed in June of 1972. The day after the last race was finished, they started demolition of the pits immediately. However, shortly after the demolition started, a new mayor was elected and ordered it to stop. But the first pit boxes had already been demolished and were lost forever. After 30 years of stasis, they made new plans to restart the demolition of the buildings and build new homes on the site instead. Fortunately, the foundation Les Amis du Circuit de Go was founded to save the remains of the old Reims-Gueux Circuit. They gained permission to restore the buildings and guarantee that nothing would be demolished again in the future. The foundation translates as Friends of the Circuit of Go. Now we've arrived at the Thilloir hairpin, a hard braking point at the end of the fast back straight. But as you can see, it's also been changed into a roundabout too. So actually, we can now call it the Thilloir roundabout. We're now back on the long start-finish straight where we go back up to the old buildings that remain. These are the buildings that are now being restored by the foundation. The restoration started in 2004. First, they had to clean it all up because after 32 years of decay, the buildings were overgrown and frankly looking a little bit like a zombie apocalypse. Since then, the pits and the buildings around it have been restored. In 2020, the plan is to start restoring the old grandstands. When we cross the start-finish line, we will start with a lap of the 1952 layout of the Reims-Gueux Circuit. The first grandstand on the left was the press grandstand. And on the right we have the old pits. Remember, the pit lane used to be longer before a section of it was demolished right after the last race in 1972. As you saw on the start-finish straight, there were lots of people here. Actually, the Reims-Gueux Circuit is a social meeting point for locals and nostalgic and motorsport fans from all over the world. Now we can enter the new section for 1952. It was built to cut off the passage through the village of Gueux. The first corner of this section was named Gueux Corner, minus the roundabout of course. Whilst this part is officially public road, it's actually designed as a racetrack. Here we leave the new section and turn right back onto the circuit that we've already seen, but for 1953 an extension was planned, which we'll see directly in front. Next lap round, we're going down that version. We're now back on the section we've already seen before. The corner on top was the only left-hand turn of the 1952 layout. This descent was actually not part of the circuit. It's been created later to underpass the N31 highway. Of course, there was no roundabout here. We're spotting a pattern. This was actually one of the two slow corners on this layout. Herman had to overtake that car because he wanted a clear view when he was filming on the old circuit. In the next lap round, he'll have a little bit of a problem with that. Some things never change, the cornfields are still here. As you can see, the Reims-Gueux Circuit was very fast, and now that the section through the village of Gueux was cut off, it was even faster. With the section of Gueux cut off, the Reims-Gueux Circuit was now only 4.444 miles long. But this was only a temporary solution for 1952. For 1953, we have the extension incoming. A 4.444 mile long circuit may look long compared to the average length of modern racetracks, but in the 1950s, circuits were much longer. If you want to see the top 10 longest Formula 1 circuits, please check the video, Top 10 Longest F1 Circuits. So we're back at the hardest braking point on the track again, the Thilloir roundabout. In front, to the left, you'll see the famous restaurant La Garienne. On our left-hand side, by the trees, is the remains of what was probably an old marshal's post. At the far right of the screen, you'll see an old building that was a ruin when Herman filmed these laps in 2015. Today, this building looks like brand new since it's been completely restored by the foundation. Now we'll start our lap of the 5.159 mile long layout that ran from 1953 right the way through to 1972. The 1953 version was a teeny tiny bit longer though, but I'll tell you more about that when we get to the right spot. This layout was actually the most famous layout of the Reims-Gueux Circuit. Sadly, it was also the last version of the track, and the only version that you cannot complete anymore. You'll see more about that later on in the video. We've seen this corner already before. In the first lap, I joked about the roundabout, but this was actually a very fast right-hander. For traffic, they built in this roundabout long after the last race was completed. A part of the original corner is still visible, just on our right. So after the little detour over the roundabout, you can see we're back at the remaining part of the Gueux corner. This section was actually designed for racing in the first place. In front of you, you'll see the 1953 extension, which we will enter in a few moments. But before we do this, we have to make a little tiny detour here. Today, this part of the track is only used by farmers as an access road to their land. The name of this corner is Annie Bousquet, a female driver that died at this very corner in a crash during the 1956 edition of the 12 Hours of Reims. Annie Bousquet was actually born in Vienna, Austria as Annie Schaefer. She married to the French racing driver Pierre Bousquet. She was holder of the women's speed record set at Autodrome Linus Montloret. This is a high-banked racetrack near Paris, and Herman's been there too. 1956 was a tragic year for the Bousquet family. First, Pierre Bousquet died in January after an accident on a public road. And then in Germany of that same year, Annie Bousquet died here at Reims-Gueux Circuit. We're now entering the Hovette corner. This was the only left-hand turn during the 1953 to 72 configuration of the circuit. On the map you'll see a short straight after this corner. That leads you onto the Moisson corner, which in turn brings you onto the back straight. Today, this section has been demolished. That happened for the expansion of the N31 to take it into being a multiple lane highway. We follow the demolition part now by drone. As you can see, there is still a line through the cornfields. That's where the old track used to be. Maybe we can get a cheeky RC car through there one day. In 1954, the radius of the Moisson corner was changed to make the circuit even faster. They did the same with the Fillois corner as well. That made the total length of the track a smidgy bit shorter, from 5.187 miles to 5.159 miles. Here we see from the N31 the remains of a 1953 version of the Moisson corner. And here we see the remains of the 1954 through to 1972 version of the Moisson corner. On top of this hillock was the bridge for pedestrians over the back straight. Just like the one at the start-finish straight, it was also built to look like a tyre. Here on our right hand side is where we entered onto the back straight in our previous 2 laps. As you see, Herman keeps his distance from the cars in front, so that he can have a clear view of sight whilst filming the track. However, someone decided to overtake Herman, but with only 1 kilometre speed difference. Think of 2 lorries battling down a motorway. Herman actually wanted to let him go, but after he'd overtaken him, he then blocked the view. So Herman downshifted and put pedal to the metal and caught up with him. The new Fast and Furious sequel is definitely confirmed. We're now back at the Fillois corner for the 3rd time. Is this roundabout annoying you yet? Don't worry, this is the last lap. While we drive back to the start-finish, I'd like to point you to the website www.circuitsofthepast.com. Here you can find more information about the Reims-Gueux Circuit and other bygone circuits of the past. On the website, you'll also be able to download a free ebook about 7 abandoned circuits that you can visit legally. You'll be able to see a clickable link at the end card of this video. For now, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications so you don't miss our next video about race circuits from the past.